You are listening to the CADDle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CADDle Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CADDle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your extraordinarily loud host, and with me is my partner,
the quiet and tame one, Rocco.
See, and it's because he's quiet and tame that I have to liven things up with the most important aspect of our show, the engineering joke of the week. See, Rocco, this is all your fault that people have to suffer through this. So blame Rocco, everybody. So here you go, Rocco, your engineering joke of the week, right? So an engineer walks into the bar and he says, "Quick, give me a beer before the problems start." And the bartender gives him a beer and the engineer downs it and then he says, "Quick, give me another beer before the problems start." And the bartender hands out another beer, but he's getting a little concerned, right? The engineer seems like he's got some serious distress working. So this goes on for a while, and after the engineer finishes his 6 beers saying the exact same thing each time, the bartender finally asks, he goes, "Hey, pal, when are you going to start paying for all of these beers?" And the engineer sits back and says, he goes, "Now the problems start." There you go, everybody. That's our engineering joke of the week. All right, so we're getting into the real show.
Wow, now. That one was actually funny.
See, there you go. It happens. You know, I can't always be as bad as I try to be. So, all right, even though, like I said, what is it? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, all right, anyway, let's get into the show. So we have a guest with us today. Julie Keverian, the North American Technical Manager from BricsCAD, is back with us once again. So, Julie, it's always great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Always. So, Julie is here to talk to us about the BricsCAD V23 release and all the cool new tools and features in it that are just going to make everybody's design life a lot easier. But before we get to that, let's find out, how Julie got to where she is, what her background is, and how she got to the grand heights she's at in BricsCAD, right? So Julie, can you tell us a little bit about, your background and how you got to your current position at Bricsys?
Sure. Well, I've been with Bricsys for 3 years, and I was one of the first team members hired in North America. And my education is in architecture, but I spent most of my career not only in architecture, but also real estate, construction, and technology. I've worked for big tech firms and little tech firms, and Bricsys is kind of right there in the middle.
So a little bit of everything mixed into the Julie soup. It works well.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So, the V23 release of BricsCAD, it dropped in back in, I think, late October at the annual Bricsys Digital Summit, right? And they came out with their new Build Better slogan. BricsCAD kind of declared a focus on improving the way that drafting, both 2D and 3D, is handled on a daily basis instead of kind of stranding us with decades-old tools and processes, like some of the other systems have done in this space. And I think that's an important mindset, as most of us are still working in CAD on a daily basis, right? And while the new construction management, digital twin, cloud-based analytics tools, they're all great. They're fantastic tools. But we can't just leave the workhorse of our industry in those gray realms of, it's good enough. And we've talked a lot about this, on this podcast, right? We've talked about BricsCAD before. And the way that they've been steadily increasing the capabilities and the intelligence behind their base CAD systems, all right, to become kind of, the leading innovators in this CAD space. So Julie, let's talk about this, the Build Better concept, right? How does that translate into practical use in the BricsCAD space?
Well, there are 4 principles in the concept of Build Better. First is challenging the status quo through those CAD-based innovations that we're all familiar with. So we continue to develop in DWG tools for the design process. Number 2, we want BricsCAD to be intuitive to learn, use, and adopt. And one of the improvements along this is the tips panel. The tips panel has been improved, excuse me, and provides not only new users, but new users to BricsCAD and new users even just to CAD with in-product help and command guidance. So you open the tips toolbar and it tells you about the command that you just executed. Number 3 is to harness new technology to supercharge that productivity. As we've talked about before, Bricsys invests heavily in research and development to bring new tools, AI tools, machine learning tools to BricsCAD to, like we like to say, is take the drudgery out of CAD and let the computer and CAD and BricsCAD do some of that heavy lifting, repetitive searching, and let you as a user do the fun creativity and the things that need to be done by a human, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then number 4 is to keep BricsCAD interoperable and open. And that means that it's open for users to do their own customization, as well as open to third-party developers to create additional tools to run on BricsCAD. That also means being able to exchange information between other software programs. And one thing about that interoperability and open that I always like to talk about, or at least mention, is that even BricsCAD Lite supports Lisp. So you can create and run Lisp routines right in BricsCAD Lite.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. A lot of our BricsCAD users love that fact that they get that Lisp capability in the lowest cost version, which is something you don't get from competitors. So
correct.
All right. So, look, I have not been shy about my views on BricsCAD on this show. And the tools, right, that they bring to the table.
Wait a minute. Are you ever shy about your views?
No. When you're brilliant like I am, you don't have to be. That's kind of the rules, man. Come on.
Brilliant?
Well, unless
Julie,
my wife's
can you
in the
save
room.
Me?
Nah,
you're on your own.
There you go. Julie knows better than to get in the middle of that mess. Oh, goodness. But yeah, I mean, honestly, though, BricsCAD brings just a ton of tools to the table that, like Julie was saying, right? They promote both efficiency and productivity in the native CAD environment, and I think that where a lot of the big competitors out there have been kind of sitting on their laurels or just mocking up copycat versions of the big CAD system on the block, BricsCAD has done just a remarkable job of bringing out tools that don't exist in other systems, right? And they have a hugely positive impact on our daily work processes. And we've talked with Julie in previous visits, right, about tools like Copy Guided and Propagate and others. But I kind of want to get an idea of what we have coming in this new V23 version, right? So I'm going to kind of ask Julie to explain some of the key new features to us in a bit more detail. All right, so Julie, there are 2 new features in BricsCAD V23 that kind of tie together in my mind, and that's the Optimize tool and the Drawing Health features. Can you kind of explain what those do and how they benefit listeners?
Yes. Optimize is not a new command in version 23, but it's been improved. So Optimize will make corrections to what I call sloppy drafting. So if there are small gaps between lines or lines that are not quite straight, with Optimize, there's a new command panel now, and you can see the tolerances that can be set for those gaps and angles. So you set some tolerances, and then again, you let BricsCAD do the work of finding these gaps and these lines that are not straight, and it corrects it. So it cleans up your drawings. Now, Drawing Health is really a suite of tools, and the Drawing Health tool is new in BricsCAD V23, and it basically takes several other commands: purge, optimize, simplify, overkill, blockify, and audit, and wraps them into one tool. Now, you can still run each of those tools individually like we always have, but the Drawing Health tool allows you to kind of do that all under one umbrella, in one command. And you can run any combination of those tools within Drawing Health, and you can create and save routines so they can be reused. So you have drawings that you consistently get from one of your external partners and, there's always a few issues with them, you can just run these routines. It helps to clean up your drawings, reduce file size, gets rid of unused data. So it just, again, it's automating some of the things that we have had to do manually in the past.
Yeah. I really like that one. And that's huge, particularly the fact that you can rerun it. I can't tell you how many times when I was working in the civil space, we'd get base maps from surveyors who were not always the most technically savvy folks, and we'd get some questionable drawings. So having one tool like that where I can just kind of set it up once and rerun it, I absolutely love that concept. That's a huge production boost. One of the things that I love about BricsCAD as a whole, right, is that they don't ignore 2D design work. Look, they provide wonderful tools for 3D work as well, but they don't ignore the daily 2D drafting and design tools that most of us still regularly work with. And it's nice to have somebody making those day-to-day features easier to use instead of, being told that we have to learn all new processes and new workflows every year. So Julie, what about primarily 2D features in V23, like Connect and parametric block assist and the GIS import export? How do those work in the new release?
So Connect is a little bit like Join, but it connects lines and curves. And if possible, it will not only connect those entities, but then create a single polyline out of those entities. So again, it's kind of a cleanup tool. Parametric block assist is pretty exciting. It will convert AutoCAD dynamic blocks to BricsCAD parametric blocks. Now, this also was originally introduced in version 22, but it had very limited functionality. Now, with version 23, it's been improved, but we're still considering it to be a little bit experimental or a bit of a beta, if you will, because we're not finished with this tool. So we're going to continue to improve that, because right now you cannot convert every single dynamic block to a parametric block, but it does quite a few. So again, if you get that legacy data or you need to make changes to a dynamic block, the parametric block assist does that for you automatically. Pretty cool. Then the GIS import and export allows you to import different GIS features like layers with shapes and attributes from the SHP files into that current drawing. You can also specify the layer for each of those imported features, like an elevation can be specified. And of course, GIS export does kind of the reverse. It allows you to export that vector geographic features into that shapefile.
Yeah, and that's really cool. That ability to bring in and send out standard shapefiles is fantastic. I love that. So Rocco, let's wake you up over there. You've been napping all morning. How important are updates to the 2D design environment for our clients, right? I mean, is that still something people are actively calling in and looking for?
Yeah, definitely. It's, we did a podcast a while back just talking about how 2D is not going away, right? And I think that's definitely true. I mean, there's definitely a need for 3D out there, and obviously there's a lot of folks that are working in 3D, but 2D is the foundation, And the good thing about BricsCAD is that you can easily migrate to 3D, particularly, in architecture with BricsCAD BIM. So it's not going away, and it's definitely important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the easiest tool, the BricsCAD BIM, for taking a 2D layout and converting to 3D. It's the easiest tool I've ever seen. So, I know that I have been kind of, focused on the 2D stuff, right? Because I think that's really important. But I don't want you guys to think that BricsCAD is just a 2D drafting tool. Like Rocco said, they work really well in 3D, right? All versions of BricsCAD, whichever one you have, they all do a remarkable job of dealing with your 3D data and modeling, right? And they've put a lot of effort into making even the most complex data modeling features accessible and usable by everybody, right? Without needing to have, a PhD in geodetics and spatial analytics to understand what you're doing. So, Julie, there are two new features or featured updates for point clouds and point cloud data in V23, which, jumped out at me. One is called HSPC, right? And the other is the manager panel, right? What can you tell folks about those?
So the HSPC stands for the Hexagon Smart Point Cloud. It's a point cloud file format developed by Hexagon, which is our company that purchased Bricsys several years ago. And what that HSPC gives us is it allows for the storage of the metadata per point during or after pre-processing. So when the point cloud is actually captured, Hexagon has some hardware and software to do the capture, and it can also then classify those captured points. So classifications are groupings of points. So you could classify points that maybe make up an exterior wall of a building or the landscaping around a building. So now that you've classified and grouped these points, the new Point Cloud Manager panel allows us to turn these classifications on and off. So if you have a very large point cloud, sometimes you don't need it all to be displayed. You're only working in a small area. You can turn off the exterior wall or that landscaping and work on the areas that you need to do. Now, that classification must be done in the capture hardware and software. So it's not something that BricsCAD can do. We can't classify those points, but we can turn them on and off. Then the panel, the Point Cloud Manager panel is new, and that's where we can control those classifications, but it also allows us to create regions and multiple regions that can also be turned off and on. And think of a region like what we used to be able to do is just create a crop area. We could only create one crop area in a point cloud and turn that off or on. So now we can create multiple regions, again, for kind of manipulating the point cloud. And then finally, also with this HSPC and with the new manager panel, we can also control those bubble views. Remember, when a point cloud has multiple scan points, we got the green bubbles, right? Mm-hmm. So with version 23, we can also toggle those on and off now as well. So some really good improvements here. They increase performance and give you more control over what's displayed in your point clouds.
Yeah, and that's huge, right? That ability to be able to go in and isolate walls so you can model from the scan. That's always been the big struggle we all face with the point cloud. So getting those features in place is going to be really, really important for all of us. All right, so let's take a quick break here to listen to today's sponsor. And when we get back, I want to get into some of the feature upgrades that we're going to be seeing in BricsCAD V23. All right, so stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the CADDle Call podcast. All right, everybody. Today's episode of the CADDle Call podcast is brought to you by Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you. Aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at Zentech Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right? CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing and implementing and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, zentechconsultants.net. That's Z-E-N-T-E-K consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from Zentech Consultants. You're listening to the CADDle Call podcast. All right, everybody, welcome back to the CADDle Call podcast. We are talking with Julie Keverian of Bricsys about all the cool new tools and features in their V23 release, which is out on the market right now. And you guys can call Rocco if you want to get your hands on it or see a demo. So in the first half of today's show, we focused on kind of the new tools, right, which are always great. But I also think it's really important to work with a system that listens closely to customer feedback, right? And they update and they improve their existing features as well. Look, it's one thing to add more bells and whistles to a new product, right? But fixing and improving the tools that are already in place, I think that can be even more important in terms of productivity. So Julie, let's start with two core features, the BricsCAD Express tools and the Drawing Recovery Manager. What can those do for people, and are they fully incorporated into the V23 release?
Let me answer the second part of your question first.
Okay.
And the answer is yes. Express tools and drawing recovery are fully incorporated into BricsCAD V23. The Express tools are part of the install, so you no longer have to do a separate download and install for those. And they appear as a tab on the ribbon. So right there, nothing to be done. They just appear for you.
Nice.
Drawing Recovery has a nice command panel now that lists files that didn't close properly in the last session or, things like that. So it gives us a time and date of the last save for not only the DWG, but also the .BAK files. So you can decide which file you want to keep. You can open them, take a look. You can delete one and say, I don't need that. It also will include any DWT and DWS files, so your templates and your standards files for the checker. So the Drawing Recovery Manager automates, one of those processes that we've all had to do manually in the past.
Yep.
Huge time saver.
Yeah, massive thing. I was looking at that and I was like, this is really nice. How many times I've had to go out and search through multiple folders and find where
Exactly.
the backup files versus the auto saves, and which version do I want to key? And you got to open them up one at a time. Having it all in one panel, you can just, something crashed, you locked out, you rebooted, whatever, just come back in and just open the Recovery Manager and go, let me go find what got lost. I like that a lot.
And usually a little bubble, the yellow bubble displays at the bottom right of the BricsCAD window and says, hey, there are files in the recovery panel, and you click that and it just opens it up for you.
Yeah, that's nice. It's a great little interface. I like what you guys did there. So, all right. So look, as listeners of this show know, I am heavily biased in terms of the infrastructure space. It's a core demographic of our clients here at Zentech, and civil infrastructure is where I spent most of my own career. So I am always a sucker for enhancements in that space. And BricsCAD V23 has put out a few site and civil focused tools that I wanted to talk about today as well. So Julie, what updates have you guys rolled out for working with, civil labels and civil points and civil entities in this new version?
As you mentioned, there are quite a few. So a couple of them are that GIS import and export that we already talked about. And also, we've introduced some options for labeling civil entities for the tin surface, the tin volume surface, and grading. We've developed a user interface around importing those civil points from the point file, which allows you to specify the file format for importing the civil points. There's also a default label style that has been added, and that includes the number, the elevation, and a description. And also, we've introduced the Civil Explorer panel, which is used to manage and access these civil entities. So through the panel, you can access the settings and properties of those entities, and you can also edit existing and new entities and their components.
Yeah. All of which is nice. As a civil guy, the previous versions were nice, and you guys, with tins and point groups, and you could work those. But there were a couple of things missing in there that I think you guys have really hit on in this release, in particular, being able to add in the descriptions and the custom file types for, different types of imported survey data. I think that's huge. I think it's really making good strides towards, being a really solid, civil base tool for folks to be able to work with.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
So, all right. So listen, folks, right? As good as BricsCAD is, the folks over there at Bricsys are smart enough to realize that in the modern design world, nobody can work in a silo, right? It's just a fact of modern life. We all need to be able to share information and files, right, back and forth with other companies and other agencies, or even work with other software systems right within our own company. Collaboration and integration, they're vital concerns for all of us. And one of the things I really like is that Bricsys actively works at open integration whenever possible, right? And I'm a huge fan of that concept. So Julie, you mentioned this kind of earlier in the first half, right? And, from what I've been looking at on V23, I see there are a lot of, BIM and BOM integrations in this new release, right? As well as tie-ins for Leica equipment. What can folks expect on the integration side for V23?
Well, we've got integration at a couple of different levels. One of them that you just mentioned, the BIM BOM integration, we've actually taken some of the bill of material manager tools that were previously only available in BricsCAD Mechanical, and we've opened them up to BricsCAD BIM. So that BOM manager is now integrated into BricsCAD BIM. So what that does is that helps us increase the quantity takeoff capabilities of BIM. So it's easier to add and organize and format your parameters of a table. Think schedule, right? You do DXDs and create a table. But that actually, with the BOM manager, makes that much easier and gives us many more capabilities to create those, say, door and window schedules. And once that's created in the BOM manager, the table can be inserted directly into a BIM sheet. And that also gives us more support for creating, taking the BIM plies and getting quantity takeoffs on those as well. Now for integration also in BIM, we've introduced some new IFC types, and we've made improvements to the BCF, the BIM collaboration format. So now issues can be created and assigned in the BCF panel in BricsCAD BIM, and that works with BIM Collab, BIM Track, and BIM Sync.
Nice. Nice. And one thing I do want to point out, just for listeners, right, just you guys who are hearing what we're saying here today, that the BOM integration, right, that's important for designers, but I think it's more important for anybody who's listening in the construction space. At the end of the day, right, who really needs those door and window schedules and counts of objects? And it's usually the construction guys, the GC guys, right? And a lot of times the designers go, it doesn't really help us, and they ignore things like that. But that's the kind of tool that I think, when you can get a BIM model and just go in and say, hey, I need a door schedule, I need all the counts, I need all the hardware, and they can extract that BIM data right from the model and give you a list. That's huge. That's the kind of stuff that makes your life real easy. So I think that's a great add-in. Rocco, how important is data sharing and integration for our clients, right? And I'm just kind of wondering, are there specific industries, right, where it seems to be more important, where it takes precedence?
I think that it's important across the board. I mean, it's and the ability to bring BricsCAD to its core, right? The DWG compatibility is huge for folks that are working with AutoCAD, for example. So I think it's important all around.
Okay. All right. So look, folks, right, as I always try to do, right, whenever we have a guest on, I like to give them a chance to tell us something that I was not smart enough to know I should ask about. So we're going to do that for Julie, right? So what about it, Julie? What important tool or features or concepts around the V23 release do you think that our listeners need to know more about?
Oh, there's so many. It's hard to say.
Hey, take your time.
All right. But I think one of them, or really this all comes back to the 4 points of the build better concept. We're continuing to improve BricsCAD. Things like that are hard to explain, but you see them visually. We're looking at all these new command panels that you've probably noticed when you looked at version 23. Mm-hmm. So like the drawing health is using all of those audit and purge commands, but now they all have these really nice command panels. So it's much easier to use these tools. And that's one of our kind of under the hood improvements of migrating our panels and our dialog boxes to this, what we call QT technology. So that I think is really important. That's why you're seeing so many visual changes in BricsCAD. But there's also little things. There's a command called check for updates, and it compares the current installed version of BricsCAD on your computer with what is the most latest current available install to be had. And it says either you're up to date or, hey, there's a newer version of BricsCAD available for you. Do you want to go see it? And here's a link to the download page. Simple, but very effective. So now you don't have to go to the website, go to the download page, see what's the current version. It does it for you. Again, that just making it so much easier to work in BricsCAD.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. I think that's one of the best things that you guys do. It is improving the user interface and making it easier, right? I mean, look, if you want to talk about things like people can say, hey, the purge command's been around for 25 years. Yes. And in other software, it's been in the exact same command line state with this kind of, hodgepodge put together dialogue box that sort of works, right? And it hasn't changed.
And it's cryptic.
It's cryptic, and you better know what you're doing. Right. And one thing that I do love about BricsCAD, you guys always making it easier to get the information in front of them in a nice, easy to understand graphic format. That's what I was saying before, right? You don't have to be a rocket surgeon to understand how to use BricsCAD. They make it easy and they put it in the most user-friendly manner that they can for all these tools and commands. So I'm a big fan of those panels you guys develop. I like those.
And don't forget that it still remains, available as either an annual or perpetual license.
Yeah, that's huge. People always love to hear that I can buy it and keep it and not have to pay an annual subscription if I don't want to.
Yes.
Yes. And for dramatically less than their big name competitors. So there's the sales pitch for Rocco's sake. All right,
you can't forget that there's also, you can do network license. You don't have to have a license for every single person that uses BricsCAD.
The last holdout in that network licensing model structure is BricsCAD. So yeah, you want to know about that? Call Rocco. Put him to work. Have him make me some money for a change. So, all right, folks. I think we're going to sign off here and let you all get back at your day. But I do want to thank Julie for being here once again to help us understand all the cool new tools in BricsCAD V23. So, Julie, it's becoming kind of a semi-annual event for you to be here, and we really appreciate that you always take the time to sit and talk to us. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you both, Jim and Rocco. It's always a pleasure to be on the podcast with you too.
Outstanding. All right, folks, we're going to get out of here, and we'll catch you next time on the CADDle Call podcast. All right, everybody, today's CADDle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.